This is the week we've all been waiting for. We have the election on Tuesday and FOMC on Thursday. So it's going to be a packed week. Expect a lot of volatility. But one thing that I do want to mention with the volatility is if we actually go to the VIX really quickly, after this week, you'd expect, unless there's some insane event or something really incredible that happens out of this, you'd expect volatility to revert back to where it was before the election season. A lot of this heightened vol environment, like 18 plus on the VIX, as we've seen recently, is mainly due to the election. So once that does pass, and then we have FOMC, and once that passes, you'd expect this to fall down with time, again, barring some type of crazy news outside of the election or FOMC with the rate cut projection. But with that being said, if those expectations are met, you'd like to think that that would be positive for the indexes and just equities as a whole, because they are inversely correlated. When we see volatility fall down, like if it were to fall all the way back down to the mid-teens again, going into November or December in the holiday season, you'd expect there to be that inverse outcome for the indexes, which would be positive for something like QQQ or the S&P 500. So that's the first comment that I wanted to make in this video. Second thing that I do want to talk about is QQQ, and I'll get rid of this line. Not sure why I just drew that there, but if we go to the 15-minute chart over here, we did technically break down below the previous range that we were stuck in before. I spoke about this in the most recent video. We have a range over here, and we had another range over here. And until we broke either below 491.60 or above 500 at the time that I recorded that last video on Wednesday, we were not going to see any type of a trend move. Well, interestingly enough, we had a major gap down and it opened right around 491.60 and broke down below, and we have yet to reclaim this level. So this level here and this level here, super critical to the previous range. And now that we're below that, there is an opening here this week for bears to take it a bit lower. I'm watching for two things though. The first thing is if we were to go lower, let's say bears win, so to speak, if they were to take this lower, I'd look to long this around the high 479s to 480 flat. This is a very supportive level from a previous support that was found over here in October. I do like this one over here if we do retest it. So interested in longing a dip off of there. However, it is a ways away from where we are right now at the closing price of 487. You're looking at about an $8 drop from there. Yes, certainly can still happen this week, especially with the volatility we're expecting. But that goes to show you I'm not that interested in taking a long off of 483.94 because that already acted as a nice support last week. I'm more so looking for an extreme dip move to long. Otherwise, if this does not happen and we don't see that drawdown to around 480, the other option would be a breakout back into the previous range, which would be a break above 491.60. So until either of these are met, whether it be 480 just about or a break above 491.60, I am not trading QQQ. I'm not interested at all in trading in this wide range. We're looking at about an 11-point range on QQQ, and that is certainly tradable. However, I don't have an edge in this range. And that, as traders, we need to make sure we admit, because if we see consolidation like this within the range, yeah, it could certainly be possible to long a dip around here at 483 or short a top around here at 490. But for me personally, it's not worth the risk of trading range-bound price action when I'm looking for more so of a trend move. Those pay out handsomely, way more than range-bound price action, at least for my trading strategy. That could be different for you, but for my strategy, I like to look for trend moves because those are the most swingable. I'm not as interested in day trading this. I'm looking for swing setups. 3+ days at least typically is what I shoot for, like 3+ days all the way to like 2 weeks, 3-week holds on that swing position. So I'm looking for that trend setup, and I know that that trend setup is either going to come from a supportive retest and bounce off of this level here, or it's going to come from a breakout back above 491.60, and I would add on that breakout with my stop being back under. I know there's a lot of lines here. I'll get rid of this theoretical chop from over here, but I'm really looking for either of these options. Either we continue down from where we are right now, bears take it early this week, maybe through the election, we see some type of an additional pullback, and then they find support around here, maybe a little bit lower with a wick, and then it's up. Otherwise, if they're able to reclaim that 491.60 level, that means they reclaim the previous range from before, and that would be bullish outcome. And I look to long with that newfound bullish momentum. Again, looking for a gap fill and then 500 next. Above 500, this thing can continue a lot higher to all-time highs afterwards. So this certainly is a crucial level, and I'll draw this out right here type it for you. All-time high is unlocked above 500.01. Not like it has to go too much farther. I think the all-time high is like 503 mid. So not like that's an insane move from there, but we probably see continuation well above into all-time highs above 500. So really, it's just 3 levels that I'm watching for this week, and they're pretty wide, all things considered. You're looking from about 480 all the way up to 500, and then one in the middle at that 491.60 level. But all of this basically paints the roadmap for me going into this election week, plus that FOMC. I have the plan set out. I'm expecting a lot of volatility, and that is my plan for QQQ. Now, another one that I'm looking at right now, at least for an individual ticker, sparked my interest last week was MSTR. And this one's very interesting to me because it tracks Bitcoin very closely. As we can see over here, if I go to not only the 15-minute chart, but I show you the daily chart over here, and I have it drawn out from before, but we can see where this trend line goes all the way back to 2021 from over here. February of 2021 connects to recently this year in March of 2024. You can see the high pivot. And then you can see we broke out of it recently in October. Initial rejection, so it was respected again, and then we finally broke out above, found support numerous times off of that breakout, and then continuation. What I'm looking for, as I drew out from over here, is some type of a retest of this trend line. This is what I consider to be a critical trend line. If we retest it, there's a higher probability that we see a bounce from this level and continuation. Not only is there a higher probability we see a bounce and continuation from this level, it also provides us with the best risk reward. And the reason I say that is because if I add in this circle over here, like around say 212, 213 on a retest, well, I can use an hourly candle, or maybe even if I want to be more conservative, use a daily candle close below that level, below this trend line here as my risk. And as long as it remains above, there is a higher likelihood it continues higher. That's not much risk, all things considered. If the hourly closes down around like 208, that's a 4-point loss on that position, when in reality, this thing could bounce a lot higher. Like I'm talking 250, maybe 260 plus on a bounce here from all the way around 212. That's a lot more reward to possible risk of an hourly closing below, or even a daily. Even if it goes all the way down to 205, that's not a lot of risk compared to the potential reward of this setup. That's why I like it so much. Plus, like I said, there's a higher probability it bounces off the initial retest, since this will act as a key support. So looking for something like this. And not only is this good from a technical basis on MSTR, I did like the flow, and that's something that sparked me to look at it some more this weekend. We had a $1.7 million 250 strike out the money call by a bit. And this is for the 2027 expiration. So yeah, it has a lot of time on it, but there's been a lot more interest in it recently, which is the main reason I wanted to look at the chart. Because if you were to go back to something like September, and I can actually do that for you right here, we can go back to September and check for ourselves, like the first and maybe second week of September for MSTR flow. We can see there really wasn't too much, all things considered. And whoops, I chose November there. But if we go first 2 weeks, you can see over here, there wasn't that much. A lot of this was pretty deep in the money, all things considered, and then a lot of call sells over here. So the tape was, you could call it relatively active, but this really isn't anything of interest. We didn't really see much out the money prints. This would be about the only interesting one. And this was a leap order for 2026 over here. So a lot different compared to what we saw on just Friday alone. This is just Friday's flow. And if I factor in the entire week, we can see from over here, there was quite a bit of activity all week long, a lot to the call side, a lot of bullish bets on MSTR. And that's mainly because of Bitcoin. This is tied very closely because they keep buying Bitcoin. They actually did an offering as of last week on their earnings call, and they announced that they're going to buy even more Bitcoin. So this tracks Bitcoin very nicely. There's a very clear correlation to it. And I personally am fond of Bitcoin at the moment because of this breakout we saw over here. If you haven't seen me talk about this yet on this channel yet, I'll just show you very briefly what I'm looking at. Basically, it's just a giant cup and handle breakout right now. We're looking at a cup from over here and then the handle that formed. And not only is this a handle, it's also a bull flag. So if we use both of these trend lines here, you can see this is a flag, a pretty thick one as well. Like we're looking all the way back from March to now. So that's quite a while that it was flagging, and we finally broke out above it. So this is bullish to me at a nice retest over here and then continuation higher. So as long as it remains above, I'd consider 66,000 or so. This is something that is bullish. And of course, if MSTR is following Bitcoin, that would be bullish for it as well. And I could actually mark it right here for you guys. You could see compared to it if you use the ratio tool here on TradingView, and we can see how it's performed compared to Bitcoin. And recently, it actually has been a lot more exacerbated, the move at least, compared to what Bitcoin has seen. So relatively speaking, this is a lot stronger, likely due to there being some short squeeze factor here and it being priced a lot higher in comparison. So I actually like that even more than just trading Bitcoin by itself, because if there's a short squeeze factor, then there's a lot of momentum you can ride up and it can continue a lot higher from here. Also, it means that there's some extra risk with that. So you got to make sure you're careful. Plus the options in this case are severely overpriced at the moment, just because the implied volatility is super high. So this is something that I'm more interested in trading the shares on. I could show you the implied volatility here. For example, if we chose one of the more recent prints like the 1101, the ones that expired last week, we can see here, 459% implied volatility. That's ridiculous. There's no reason to buy these calls, even if you are bullish on it. Shares will do, and it's something that's pretty volatile, things considered, hence the heightened IV. So it fell 6% on Friday, and there was a day over here that was like 10%, right here, 10% to the upside. So shares are plenty for sure, plenty of risk there already. No reason to add options, in my opinion. Still, they're certainly tradable when you have an IV that's high, but you got to be careful with that, especially with the timing and as you get closer to expiration, etc. But this is something that interested me quite a bit. Could be a potential squeeze candidate, especially if Bitcoin continues to perform well. So I wanted to share it with you guys in today's video. Regardless, as always, appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys next time.